Okay, great. All right, we're going to start the meeting tonight at 6:02. I do need to add an executive session to the agenda. So if someone would like to make the motion to accept the agenda with the addition of a executive session regarding labor relations, that would be great.
I move to accept the agenda with the added item.
Natalie, and a second from Kevin, is that what I heard?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. All right, we are moving, because Allison Popa is online with us tonight, because she has something going on later this evening with her family. She's going to run us through a quick, well, as it says here, sustainability, future planning. So she is online. So Allison, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. And I am on my way to an American Young Voices concert. That's what's happening tonight. But wanted to take the time to sort of revisit our discussion from the 19th and just pull through some of what I heard. I see Renee has pulled up the deck. This is the big reveal. But basically what I wanted to be able to communicate tonight is the idea of contemplation and sort of giving you all something to think on so that we can come together and really define sort of the path forward. So, you know, we've had time to process this on our side, but basically what I wanted to understand from Lori after the May 19th meeting was sort of this idea of why now? You know, why are we approaching this sort of facilities discussion? What does it mean for the district? And, you know, have her help me understand a little bit of the time sensitivities around why we're approaching this work, you know, currently. Lori explains that some of what's coming out of legislation, we're going to have to start sort of executing on as early as October of this year. And so what I shared sort of with Lori and Renee coming off of the discussion on the 19th and just trying to understand the legislation and really be able to pinpoint what it is that we are looking to accomplish is that basically at this point in time, there's really not a no change option in Vermont state, right? We're kind of at a crossroads. And the question is more so around how the district, you know, and will sort of sculpt the change that we're faced with. You just sort of think about and align on, most importantly. One is this idea around proactive change, right? We define the path, we engage the community early, you know, and plans can be sort of developed that are focused on the information that we have. Or there's this idea of what I would categorically say is more reactive change. And that's, we wait for the legislation and we sort of mold and move based on how, you know, some of the legislation determines we need to restructure. So it's really around, you know, should we pursue proactive planning or, you know, and before the sort of the pressures of this external legislation impacts us. And I'll sit with that for a minute, but that's sort of, you know, the initial thoughts around what we're faced with currently as a board. That at this point, there's just really not a no change option. And I understand that this is going to require, you know, some mindful thinking and discussion to really begin to understand, you know, what the next steps are for us holistically. And I realize it's challenging when I'm on Zoom. I'm not sure if anyone wants to share any initial thoughts. But like I said, this is really the purpose of this is to, you know, sort of invoke that thinking and contemplation for each of you as you leave and start thinking about what this, you know, what this could mean.
Does anybody have any questions for Allison or any initial thoughts? I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Oh,
I mean, I would just
okay.
say that I'm all for proactive change, not reactive, because we get to decide how we move forward instead of somebody telling us how we do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I want to stress around that for all of you is I want you all to be able to have the opportunity to make informed decisions either way. But at the end of the day, and I stressed this before, whatever the path forward is, we need to align and sort of decide what that looks like, collectively. But, if you could go to there's just a couple of things I want to close the loop on there.
Okay, let me see.
And I realize there's a typo on this slide. Click through to slide number 2.
Okay, I'll try that. Hold on. There we go.
It's right, August is going to come quickly. So that's why I took this chance. Like initially, I wasn't going to join this board meeting, but wanted to be able to start to plant some seeds so that we can really get after it on June 23rd.
Let's see.
No, did she
Let's see.
freeze?
She may have dropped off. Yeah.
Oops. Okay.
See when she comes back in.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Fernanda.
So it's very nice to see the proactive and the reactive, but it's very likely that we're going to get caught not in a binary, but in a flow of having to do both, right? There are pressures that are coming already and things that we need to do now and impacts that we're going to have now that may not be the way that we would proactively think about them, but that we're going to need to react to them as they come. So it just doesn't feel as clean cut as what that slide showed. And I just want to appreciate the fact that this is a moving train and that we don't get to stop and just create a plan.
No, that's true, but we now have more information than what we did even a month ago now that the legislation is passed.
Okay, there she is.
Oh, is she on?
Yeah, she's joining.
Okay.
And Allison disconnected. She's rejoining now.
Okay. Thank you, Colby.
She's spinning.
Yep.
Yep, her doppelganger showed up. There you go.
Okay.
There
you go.
Everybody. Hey, okay. So I was on my phone and my phone was confused, I think, so apologize. Okay, so what I heard, based on May 19th, facilities pressures is real. Trust is fragile within, the community. Process needs discipline. This must be district-wide. Communication is critical. Values and data both matter, right? So taking all these things into consideration, if you can flip to the next slide, Renee. We know, this is sort of the activation plan, okay? Align as a board, really confirm if we're all aligned with this proactive approach versus reactive. Launch the narrative. I really gave this a lot of thought. I think that there's education that definitely needs to happen, within the community, with the board too. I feel like there's things even I need to understand about all the moving parts. Instead of an FAQs, I was thinking we could do sort of a myth versus fact approach. I know Kevin even shared, some things that he's hearing in the community. A couple of you were sort of noting, like, people believe this, but this is really the reality. I think first we have to start telling the community, hey, we know this is what you're hearing, but here's the reality, so that we can start to debunk and really educate on, sort of what that communication is. I'm proposing sort of some, surround sound, op-ed, social media, website, all sort of surrounded by this rooted in this myth versus fact concept. What I'd like for each of you to do is to start to think about what you're hearing in the community so that we can start formulating what that myth versus fact document is going to look like. I don't know if anyone has anything to hear or to add here, but that's really what I'm thinking is step number one, to start to educate the community, as opposed to just saying, here's the legislation, here's what we're looking at. I think step one is going to be that myth versus fact. There's going to be other bits of communication, like I was saying to Brenda, say we decide to move forward with this proactive, right? What does that financial investment, for example, look like by taxpayer? I always say if you say someone it's going to cost $30 million, right? But for you, for me, it's going to be $250 additional in the school budget, for example. I think there's ways to start to break it down so it's a little bit more granular and palatable. I leaned in on the fact that, we want to understand the facts. So we talked about, and this is really for the board education, right? Refreshing facilities data, enrollment trends, scenarios. Scenarios are really based around, and this is where it gets a little complex, right? If 955 passes, which it did in the House, is my understanding, right, Lori?
Yes.
I think that's what Brenda communicated. So, in that case, there's going to be some reaching out to other districts. There's going to be proactive things we're going to need to do to start to sort of plan for what that might look like to position, our district in a way that's going to be successful coming out of this. We know we need to listen broadly. So we did talk about a survey, direct mailers, we can QR code it, staff engagement, community feedback, having some listening, some very organized, facilitated listening sessions, and then build a plan. Any comments there from anybody as the sun glares in my face? Okay, so next slide, Renee. Yeah, these are just some things that I was noting that we need to sort of clarify and align internally as a board before we can really go out to the community to have those, those conversations and to really make sure that we're communicating in a very strategic way. So updating the facts, defining the process, engagement to design, questions to answer, decisions to stage. So that's where, we don't want it to appear like we're coming to the community with the solution. We really want to make sure we are informed and then we are able to really articulate what that means for everybody in the extended community, both internally, right, our staff and team, and externally, all of the communities that we serve. If you could go to the next slide, Renee. And I may have you skip the next one if I remember. Oh, well, this is just sort of that graphic around surround sound, right? We're going to have proactive planning protects local choice. I mean, or whatever the core message is, that's what I want to nail down. So once we align on everything and we say, okay, proactive is the way we want to go, an example of that messaging could proactive planning protects local choice, right? Or something along those lines. And we'll get there, but just wanted to, again, give everyone something to chew on. But we really want to help the community understand the choice in front of the district before asking for input on options. You can go to the next slide, So here's just a sort of high-level proposed next steps. Board alignment, we're starting that now. We're going to align on narrative and the data, understand the facts. I've asked Brenda to present on a couple of different things around legislation, budgetary, just trying to understand the numbers and the data. Survey design, draft community survey, and direct mailer. Looking to really disseminate that, hoping we can align on June 3rd, that we can get that out in the community. before we do any surveying, though, that's where the op-ed comes in and really defining those myths versus facts. So it might be closer to an early July dissemination. What we did the last time when we surveyed community members is we asked, hey, would you want to participate in a working session? We had like over 25 people say that they would do that, and they were representative of all different communities. So that worked out really well. I think we'll do that again, but we can open it up in other ways. Host the working sessions, you know, and then start to really shape how we want to start to approach and engage so that we can, you know, really make sure that we execute in a very strategic way. Anything anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I'd say that we need to be careful about characterizing the discussion as myth versus facts. I mean, there are things that people hear or you know, imagine at some point that are factually wrong. But I think it's condescending to present an approach that says we know and you don't. Because
yeah, it could be a Q&A, Kevin. It could be any, you know, it could be anything. I mean, we can frame it however. I think the idea, though, is to be able to pinpoint sort of what we're hearing, what some of those, you know, points are, and then being able to, you know, frame it in a way that is informative and based on fact, right? Not based on what somebody heard or their interpretation. So to your point, again, this was for contemplation. If there's another way to present it, I think I'm open to it, absolutely. But I think it's more just about being able to really hit on, you know, it's so nuanced what we're sort of trying to educate people on. I think that a very clear cut, you know, whether it's an FAQs, a Q&A, we could even solicit questions, you know, from the community. I'm hearing this, I'd like to understand this better. There's ways to engage. I was even saying you could do polls on Facebook, right? There's ways to get people sort of engaged in communicating. So absolutely, if you feel myth versus fact is, you know, sort of condescending, we can approach it in a different way. That's not a problem at all. But I think the essence is still the same, right? Really identifying those key things that people need to understand so that we can, you know, start to educate in a safe way, you know, at the end of the day.
I really like the underlying idea of the myth versus reality process, to say maybe it's not worded exactly that way, maybe we figure out a different way to word it,
Right.
but picking up what we're seeing being shared around on Facebook and whatever in our little circles, because I see a lot of times people are posting or commenting about just their understanding that they've kind of picked up on things, and I think if we bring those snippets back, those are a great place to start providing clarity
Awesome.
and expanding on what people are interpreting out there. So there'll sort of be a myth, I'm doing quotes, a myth floating around out there that has been developed from pieces of information. Some of it is factual, some of it is, you know, sort of been, you know, the telephone, you know, whispered around the room, that one. And as Kevin's saying, the person at the end of the telephone line isn't intentionally creating
No.
a misguiding mythical effect intention, but that they've heard something totally wrong or totally off base from what the intention is. And that's kind of what happens a lot, I see, in the community. And it would be great if there's a way to introduce a way to combat that or educate people around it respectfully.
Yeah. And it,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go
Can
ahead,
I
Jess.
just jump on that, Allison? Because I think you could probably address them both at the same time. I feel like the other pieces is that, like, almost, I mean, everyone in our community has some touch point to this process, right? Whether it's just like writing out the check for their taxes, sending their kids or their grandkids to school, being a student, you know, having been an alum, being a teacher or related to a teacher. So I think the other pieces that maybe would push me to look for an alternative framing to the myth versus fact is that it's not even necessarily that people have wrong information, it's just that they have partial information, right? And part of our job as the school board is to take the 30,000 foot view and kind of consider all perspectives and determine what's the best path with the least pain. And so, like, it's like a very unsexy way to put it, that like what we want to do is communicate nuance and communicate additional perspectives. But I think that is kind of the goal of this campaign, is to say like, look, you're like, what you're feeling, what you're angry about is real. And also, here are all these other factors and all these other reasons that other people might be upset, or negative impacts that could happen to other people. And like, what is the way that we could, and I do like the proactive framing, navigate through them, that's the best compromise for everyone involved.
100%. Yeah, and it could even be, we name it the 30,000 foot view. You know, there's ways to frame it, to everybody's point, and, you know, so that it's feels warm and friendly, and not something that I'm like, whoa, you're not talking about me, you know. So I appreciate the dialogue, and that's the seed I wanted to plant with all of you today. It's just to start thinking, or it could even be, and you guys all represent your communities, right? So what are we hearing? What, you know, there's so many different ways for sure that we can sort of frame it up so that it feels inviting and welcoming, like a conversation versus, you know, we told you so.
Yeah. So, Gabe, did you have something else to add?
Very, very briefly. I just want to make sure that it's warm and welcoming. I like that. But also with warm and welcoming can come not firm and unclear interpretation of that. Like, I think that is a problem that we struggle with, is we need to be very concise and very clear and very direct, and not sort of dance around the topics. It needs to be
I agree.
very direct and very to the point and factual, where there isn't room for interpretation.
Sure. Okay. Yep. So essentially what Allison is saying is she wants you to start thinking about this so that when we come back together on June 23rd, we can really dive into this and go from there. Right?
So
okay.
So I want you all to be thinking. Now I've sort of mapped out what I see us accomplishing by August. And so I look forward, you know, on the 23rd, in addition to sort of this exercise that we'll do, I'm working with Jill, you know, from the district to write, you know, an initial version of an op-ed or some draft that we can align on. I also want to have a draft version of the survey so that you can see that. And my plan is, coming out of that June 23rd, which is why I wanted to talk to you all today, we can really start to activate, you know, on that sort of community engagement piece, while simultaneously educating ourselves on all of the data and information, you know, that we would need to make an informed decision.
Great. Well, thank you, Allison. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time before your family engagement. So.
Of course. I'm sorry I can't be with you there in person. I only went over by 8 minutes this time, so I'm getting better.
All right. Brett, did you have a quick question?
Comment, question, I don't know.
Okay.
I guess I wonder, do we have all of the facts that we need in order to do community engagement?
You don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
like in my mind, I keep hearing the words OpEx and CapEx, and I need, you know, like when we get down into the money, people are going to want to know, right? How much operating expense can we cut by doing X or Y?
Yeah, and that's what I asked Brenda. Yeah. Absolutely. So I asked Brenda to start those projections, Brett, but you do not yet. My point, I'm sorry if I misspoke, but we need to get all that information to be able to your point, confidently go out there and be able to speak on behalf, educate on behalf, and just exhaust anything that needs to be exhausted, so that there's no doubt in anyone's mind about what that looks like. But you do not have it yet. And I think what would be helpful, I know what I think you guys need based on how we did this before, but feel free to email Lori, email me, you know, like, hey, this is what I feel like I need to understand better in order to make an informed decision and be part of this discussion.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Allison.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right.
Bye, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Okay. We're going to move on to communications with parents and citizens and staff. Anyone want to speak to us? No? Oh, okay. I thought that's why you were here. So sorry. All right, I was jumping on. Okay, so sorry. Anyone else want to speak to us? All right, and we're gonna move on.
Oh, she said
Oh,
she
you
wanted
do?
to speak.
Oh, okay. Well, then all right. Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm not crazy.
No, okay.
Okay.
Classes. Good evening. I would like to address the board regarding transparency in the process used to approve and transfer year-end surplus funds into the facilities fund and transparency regarding the middle school model. With the board approaching another year-end surplus discussion for FY26, I felt it was important to review the process used in recent years for approving and transferring surplus funds into the facilities fund. I want to begin by referencing language in the 2017 annual meeting minutes regarding oversight of these funds. In quote, "The board will report in the annual report how much is in the reserve fund. Bonnie Bourne advised that the balances in these funds will be reported out every year and the voters can provide input with regard to taking action on those funds. The board and the auditors do watch the funds carefully to be sure they are not excessively built up. Rather than outlining each year since the facility fund was approved in 2017, I would like to focus specifically on FY24 and FY25 and the process used for approving and transferring surplus funds. FY24. At the June 18, 2024 board meeting, the board approved transferring all year-end surplus funds into the facilities funds before the final year-end amount was known. During the discussion, Kristen Holbert stated that Brenda Fleming recommended directing all surplus funds into the facilities funds because, quote, "not all accounts were closed and Ms. Fleming did not have the number yet." The board unanimously approved transferring 100% of the year-end surplus to the facilities fund. District financial records show that a transfer of $1,001,663.35 went into the facilities fund as of June 30th, 2024 fiscal year end. While later board discussions on August 20th, 2024 stated the year-end surplus as being, quote, "in excess of $1 million," I have not located documentation in the reviewed meeting materials indicating when the board was formally presented with or acknowledged the finalized FY 2024 transfer amount. FY 2025. At the June 3rd, 2025 board meeting, Brenda Fleming informed the board that the current projected surplus will be approximately $386,000, while also noting that the amount could change as the fiscal year formally concluded. The board unanimously approved transferring 100% of the year-end surplus to the facilities fund. District financial records reflect that a transfer of $1,188,303.87 was transferred into the facilities fund as of June 30th, 2025 fiscal year end. At the September 2nd, 2025 board meeting, the board was informed that, quote, "surplus funds in the amount of $1,188,303.87 was transferred to the facilities fund as approved at the June 3rd meeting." The final transferred amount exceeded the projected amount discussed with the board during the June 3rd meeting by over $800,000. What you told the public on Facebook, posted by RNESU on both the RNESU and OVUHU pages, is, quote, "in most cases, these surpluses are the result of unfilled or vacated positions during the school year. These are positions that the administration and board have identified as important to student success, but which for a variety of reasons could not be filled. I struggle to understand how unfilled or vacant positions could account for most of the $800,000 increase between June 3rd, 2025 and the final number on June 30th, 2025. If unfilled and vacant positions are indeed the primary source of surplus funds, could you please identify the unfilled or vacant positions that account for the 2024 and 2025 surplus amounts?" And I would also add probably the 2026, because I expect there's a surplus. My comments tonight are not about whether facilities needs exist or whether maintaining reserves fund is appropriate. My concern is with the process used to authorize these transfers. In both 2024 and 2025, the board approved transferring all year-end surplus funds into the facilities funds before the final year-end amount was known. In 2024, the board had no indication of a projected amount at the time of approval. In 2025, the final transferred amount was more than triple the projected amount discussed with the board at the time of approval. Given the scale of these transfers, over $1 million each, I respectfully urge the board to reconsider the current process for approving surplus fund allocations. Possible options could include waiting until final year-end figures are available before authorizing transfers, requiring a second vote once final amounts are known, or establishing thresholds for additional board review when final amounts substantially exceed projections. The board's own 2017 discussion emphasized careful monitoring of these balances, ensuring that voters are informed and able to provide input regarding these funds. Revisiting the approval process would be consistent with those principles and would help strengthen transparency, oversight, and public trust. And so I wrote this about the middle school model prior to just watching this presentation that we just had, but I will read it anyway. I would like to request clarification regarding the current status of the proposed middle school model and related facilities planning discussions. At the Leicester Select Board meeting last night, Leslie stated, "We are working on the middle school model for Otter Valley. We have some blueprints and have been doing some organizational structure work and started creating a task force to get some pricing and see about moving forward with it and getting it ready in case the state has some funding that will assist us." When asked whether there would be a bond vote in November, the response was, "Yep, that's what they are thinking of doing." However, the May 19, 2026 board minutes describe the discussion somewhat differently. The minutes state that the board is in the early stages of Task Force 2.0 5-year facilities planning, and that additional groundwork is needed before advancing specific proposals, and that early engagement with the community should focus on listening and gathering input rather than presenting predetermined solutions. The minutes also reflect discussion regarding reassessing district-wide facility data, clarifying the process for architectural planning and cost estimation, developing a structured community engagement strategy, and improving communication to rebuild trust. Given these public statements and the discussion reflected in the minutes, I respectfully ask for clarification on the following. Has the board selected or endorsed a specific middle school model? What blueprints currently exist and who authorized them? Has the board authorized pricing estimates or feasibility work related to a middle school reconfiguration? Is the district actively preparing for a potential November 2026 bond vote? What level of public input will occur before decisions regarding district configuration or bonding move forward? These are significant discussions involving potential long-term financial commitments and major changes to district organizations and facilities. Clear communication regarding the current status of planning, decision-making authority, and next steps is important to maintaining public trust and ensuring voters are fully understand the process moving forward. Thank you.
Can you give that to, thank you. Remember, I wanted to say Amy, but I knew that was wrong. That's why I hesitated. All right, okay, thank you. So I think some of your questions got answered. We'll talk about the rest of the stuff as we get closer. Anyone else want to talk public comment? Okay, we will move on. Can I get someone to make a motion for the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have a consent agenda. Moving on, presentation, fiscal year 27 continuous improvement plan to review and accept.
Well, you move at your own pace.
What's that?
You move at your own pace. Okay, let me share it.
Some glasses on. Look like I'm walking out the door. It's not true.
Hello, everyone. So what I have for you tonight that Renee is going to be popping up is sort of the bones of our continuous improvement plan. We are required by the state, and it's quite frankly just good work, to create a continuous improvement plan for each of our schools and also looking through the lens as a district as well. So we have to do both of those. And tonight, what you're going to see is you're going to see sort of the very broad goals for OVUU schools, and each of the schools has sort of more grain size goals for their school that sort of either it's something that they've identified that their particular school needs to work on. And Renee and I will sort of, when we're looking at next year's planning, we'll find a time to present each of the school plans. Not the school plans, but sort of dive into the school plans. You were sent the school plans that go to the state. Those are very broad, and they do not necessarily contain, again, those grain size pieces, because the state wants something very specific sent to them. So what we're talking about today is, again, just that broad piece.
And it has to be that specific because that's the way that the state gets the federal title monies.
Right.
And it keeps the state and then the supervisory union in compliance with those expectations.
Right. For example, when we choose action steps, we have to make sure that they are evidence-based action steps, which is a good idea, and then we have to cite them. We have to cite sort of like through the What Works
Clearinghouse.
Clearinghouse, thank you, Renee. What Works Clearinghouse, sort of where that falls and what level it falls under. It doesn't mean that because it doesn't fall under the What Works Clearinghouse that it's not a good idea. I can think of one school that's doing something right now with chronic absenteeism that's working. It's not in there, right? So those are the little things that you're not going to see here today, but we will get those to you at some point. But we do need, on June 23rd, we do need sort of a final approval of the SIP. We are in our very last days of finishing up our spring data. So again, I'm giving you sort of the bones of this, and then you'll have, as soon as the data comes in, we'll be popping that in and sending it to you so that you'll have some good time to look, a good amount of time to look through these documents. But they're pretty well cooked except for the data right now. All of the ideas, all of the action steps, all of the resources that we need to sort of carry this out, that's all pretty well done. Okay.
It's just a delay.
Oh, thank you. Good to know. So our goals are really straightforward, and you'll notice that right now there isn't any data in here, and that is because we have to get the spring data in order to determine what our goal is for next year. So we'll be bringing all of that, but I just wanted to familiarize you that as OVUU as well as RNESU, although we have 5 goals for the purpose of what we send to the state, because we have to send an academic goal and a health and safety goal. We have 2 academic goals and a health and safety goal. We're looking at proficiency for ELA. We're looking for proficiency of mathematics, and we're also looking for a decrease of chronically absent students. And then, as you can see, we have, well, this is actually just ELA here, but we're looking at, historically marginalized, economically disadvantaged, and students on IEPs. I got a little bit ahead of myself here. These are the 3, not only our goals, these are also the measures that we're going to be looking at. The same measures that we looked at the last time. We're looking at VTCAP data. So I'll move us forward. We're going to be looking at VTCAP data. Again, that's showing proficiency against our state standards. So that's saying our when we're assessing the assessment, again, remembering it's one measure, but it's telling us proficiency against the standards. I have in here last year's spring data. As soon as we get the spring data, that one will not be in on the 23rd. We'll pop this in, and then we'll set a goal for 2027. So the state knows, you've heard Renee talk about it, that we don't get the information very quickly, but in order to submit our plan for funding, we have to sort of send what we have, but we'll keep you updated as soon as the VTCAP data comes in.
One little footnote is
Yeah.
the state doesn't actually expect us to turn this in until early in the fall, but we like to have it finished before the summer starts so that we have all summer to be working with the campuses and at the district level to make sure that we're all aligned on the same goals.
Yeah, and also there are spending rules. There are spending rules that we have to follow. So if you're spending before it's been approved, that's not a good thing, so.
Illegal.
Thank you. Okay, so we looked at this last meeting or the meeting before. These are the STAR benchmark scores. Again, a completely different measure. These are measures that we're comparing students' risk or readiness compared to other students of their age and sort of where they're at the time of testing, where their skill level is at that time, and so we'll be looking at that at the spring data when that comes in any day now. And we talked a little bit about the student growth percentile. We'll be looking at that as well. Again, we have our spring from last year. We'll share the spring with you, and we will be setting a goal for the district. Each of the principals, we're putting time on the calendar to set their own goals as well as the district goal as well. Do you have anything to add, Renee? No. Oh.
Maybe I have to, okay, yeah, that's it, because I closed something in Zoom.
Oh.
That's why.
Should it work now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, this is just to show you the sort of framework of this. This is for math. This is exactly the same setup. We have our three measures that we're going to look at: VTCAP, STAR data, as well as STAR data benchmark, as well as the growth percentile, as well as all of the subgroups. And we've set goals, or we'll set goals around each one of those measures, because as we spoke about, VTCAP is one measure. It is proficiency on the standards, but just as important as that, just as important is the risk and readiness, making sure that our students are ready to learn, they're ready for the grade level content areas.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The middle column, is that supposed to be a goal, or will you be putting in?
We'll be putting in the spring data.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's not the goal that goes in that column?
No, I'll
Okay.
actually back up, and I'm glad that you asked. So what you'll see is these are our goals right here.
Right.
And we are trying to, like, this is a lot to look at. And as you saw, when you see the documents, they're 26 pages long. They're like ridiculous to look at. But we're trying to sort of simplify, give you all the information and in simplified ways, so. So again, we'll be filling in that middle column when we get the VTCAP data around July, and then we'll set the goal.
And do
So
you
Debbie, I'm sorry. So do we just need to remove the word goal after, in that middle column? Is that the question? Because that'll actually be,
Yeah.
that'll actually
Thank you,
be
that is
numbers.
a typo.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, now I see.
And so do you set the goal based on the median, or do you average, or are you looking at those?
Yeah, so we give you very broad data, but we can unpack it in a lot of different ways. So, we might look one way at for all students, and then we might set and it might be, we hope to increase by so many % for all students. And then we may look at historically marginalized and set an even higher bar for that. Or we may see, oh wow, we made huge gains here let's go, you know, a little bit more for all students and likely maybe not quite as much, you know, we sort of look at all of it and make that determination. So again, this is our, again, I'll erase the goal in the middle. I think I just copied them. And so we do have, I'll probably put those for ELA as well. It's not looking like it. So we do have our strategies and change ideas. There's a ton of them on the SIP that you have, but the overall is looking at our Bridges 3 curriculum as well as our Envision, diving into that. I just met with the Envision team about what PD to offer for next year, some ideas. I'm meeting with principals on Thursday. We'll talk about that a little bit. We also are thinking about those grades 6 through 12 in math, 6 through 12 teachers, and we have been working with VMI to see about a course. They came and visited here, so that's one of our goals too, is to bring in that, the class is called Math as a Second Language, and so it's just like we did with the reading, it's building sort of that foundational knowledge for all of our math teachers, that they all have some of it, some have all of it, but it's still just building that foundation so that we can all sort of talk through the same lens. And when they're developing when they are creating high quality instructional materials, they sort of have that common foundation that everybody's thinking about, and when they're, you know, either going and getting them or creating them, however that's working out.
VMI stands for the Vermont
Math Initiative. Thank you, Renee. And we have actually quite a few of our teachers have graduated from the Vermont Math Institute. And ironically, 2 of them who have taken this course before said it was so good that they look forward to taking it again. And so they took it like a decade ago. So it's really one of those foundational courses that has sort of hung around, and it has good, it's sort of stood the test of time, if you will. People are still excited about that.
Can you answer Jess's question?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, anything like notably new and different in the strategies and change ideas for growth, either in ELA or mathematics here?
When you say different,
so things that you're introducing this year that wouldn't have appeared substantially similar in the 2005 version of this?
I would say for math, bringing in Vermont Math Institute is different. I also would say that as far this year, our work was to use the new Bridges curriculum, and we're going to do a number corner PD for teachers in the fall for that. And then we're going to have more touches regarding math this coming year than we did last year. So, and the goal would be, you know, should this VMI work be successful, right, with our 6 through 12, that's a good match for our district, then we look at how do we sort of work on that for 3-5 the following year and K2 the following year, those teachers. So it's sort of we also only have so many in-service days, so, and a lot of these change ideas, the more granular ones, are at the school level. So, as far as ELA goes, the disciplinary literacy work will continue at Otter Valley. They also are working on sort of that lesson, they've been working on lesson planning, but you know, how do you open a lesson, how do you close a lesson, and those being sort of like the standard across the building. So there's a lot of those pieces in the individual plans. And again, we just can't possibly send all of those off to the state. So I think that it's thinking about what do we layer on each year. in order to, keep building that momentum. We also, if you remember, the instructional coach was funded fully by OVUU. That will now be funded partially by federal funds. That's why this is one of our change ideas. Even though we've had this person before, we're thinking about this in a different way, and so we'll be using some federal funds and some local funds for that position. Yeah, the other thing that is different, Jess, and everyone, is we had teachers worked with the Boost program. That's a K-6 online sort of intervention program for children to use, K-6, and that will be a part of the WIN block this year, so that there will be an expectation that all teachers K-6, it's not that we're not doing it 9-12, it's just that it looks a little different. And they've already had intervention blocks. They refine those every year. But these intervention blocks, we will be progress monitoring and making sure that we're not just providing intervention for students that, leave the classroom for tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, but that we're making sure that we actually dedicate time. So it's been happening, but we're going to dedicate time for intervention for students who are even just a little bit not quite there. They're just a little bit below, because we want to sort of bump those kiddos up. So use of all of those tools as well will be part of our plan as well. So, and that is listed under the second one, embedded differentiated support scaffolds and targeted intervention within tier 1. So it's a broad piece because that's what the state wants, but there's a lot of details to it as well. So any other questions about, Kevin?
So like all of your data is grades 2 through 12 or 3 through 11, depending on what you're looking at. But do you keep that same kind of assessment data for kindergartners and first graders? I think it's probably a different program than.
Yeah, so you'll notice in the very long document that we are using DIBELS, and we'll be using DIBELS K through 6. Right now, this is the first year we've sort of had a full year full of it. Mm-hmm. So we'll decide once we see the full year what's the best way to communicate that growth to the board for K1. So, we don't have a proficiency-based assessment K2 for,
right.
Not that, DIBELS is somewhat, because it does look somewhat at proficiency. But we will be sure to start communicating that to you once we decide the best way to do that.
So you're going to do DIBELS for K, all the way K through 6, and you're also still going to do STAR 360 for, what, 2 through 6 or 2 through?
Well, STAR goes 2 through 12.
Right.
Right. And DIBELS goes K6. They do have DIBELS through 7th and 8th grade, and OVUHS sort of the paper version of it with some of their intervention.
Yeah.
That's I just spoke with Amplify as well, and that's a conversation on Thursday that I'm going to have with the principals about how much do we use DIBELS at 7th and 8th grade? Is it just for students receiving tier 2 or tier 3 intervention to be able to track all of those little pieces, or are we using it for everyone? Because we want to find just the right amount of assessments. We don't want to over-assess, and we also want to have enough information to inform our instruction.
So DIBELS,
thanks for asking that.
DIBELS measures skills, proficient skills with literacy, and then STAR, it measures, proficiency against standards, or closer to the standards.
It depends on what report we pull.
Right.
So we've been pulling the benchmark because we have another proficiency one. But I will also say for math, we do have we are using FastBridge Math to look at K1. Again, it's sorting out what makes sense to sort of share with the board, so that we can sort of see that over time. So, yeah, but we definitely are
Yeah.
assessing everything.
Okay.
No, I appreciate the question.
Absolutely.
Kevin?
I have a suggestion and a question. The suggestion is that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that after all these years, I still don't understand the differences between these tests. And is it possible to put a sample fourth grade test into our package so we could say, oh, this is what they're,
Oh, okay.
this is the difference between the STAR and the VT cap? Because I don't understand it. And it would just be kind of helpful to me, and maybe to other people, to just see what the children are seeing and know what they're being tested.
Sure.
The question is something Braden raised months ago about older kids randomly filling out the ovals because they're bored or in a hurry. If we develop any kind of plan to try to address that or to convince the kids this is worth doing.
Well, I know that Otter Valley was very purposeful this year. Do you mind speaking to that at all, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think Braden's right, that there is varying levels of seriousness that kids are going to take a test like this with, right? And I haven't worked in third grade. I'm sure that's also true in third grade, right? But it's always felt more exacerbated at the middle high school level. A couple of things that we've tried to do. One is we varied the way over time that we've scheduled the assessments. So the most successful we had was this past winter when we had students take the STAR test in an academic class instead of like an advisory. We used to do it in ELA class, but that ELA or math class, but that wasn't capturing all the kids. So basically we set aside the whole building is working on this test at the same time. Everybody who's not assigned to a class is like in the hallways checking in on kids. We're running like a tech support room, just really trying to create the best possible conditions for kids to do well when they can. And we saw a significant bump in the winter when we did it that way. We continued it in the spring. Around VT Cap in particular, Abby did a lot of work with her team on that too. One, I think the biggest thing is like, when it goes smoothly, kids are more staff are going to be more invested in it, and kids are more likely to try hard, right? Because everybody is talking about the importance of the test and positivity. You don't get the like, well, this doesn't matter, it's just for the state, or like, yeah, I'm sorry, the computer's not working. Just do whatever you can. And we had an incentive process that I think 70 to 80% of kids met that incentive, where it was like, you show up, work hard, are respectful, give a genuine effort on the test. Was that the standard we used? Mm-hmm. You were entered into a drawing. We put some money behind buying a bunch of t-shirts and some larger prizes. Again, not the prizes in and of themselves were not necessarily the motivator, but it encouraged conversations about taking it seriously. VT Cap's interesting because you do it in March and then you get your scores back in July, and there's a pretty sizable waiting game on that. But I'm feeling confident that some of those changes that we put in place will move in the right direction, just like they did for STAR.
Thank you.
I would also add, Kevin, that I think this may be the longest amount of time in recent that we're using the same platform, right? It's sort of like, any program, you can always think of, well, I wish this was better, right? Nothing's perfect, but I think sticking with a reputable platform is going to, every year more and more teachers become more confident with the data, and the more that they start also sharing the data with their students, that's helpful too. I mean, it's much like gaming, right? Kids like to see that they, have a higher score, that they, did better this time. So the more that everyone becomes familiar with this, the more comfortable people will feel actually, popping open their laptop and looking at their data right afterwards. So all of that, there's a lot of little pieces that are going to help with that as well.
Fernanda has a question.
Yes. Oh, yes, Fernanda.
I was just wondering if there's a reason why you're not using STAR all the way through, since it is available PK2 in all the subjects, and just wondering about the transition between DIBELS data and STAR data, and whether or not there's a reason for the different tests.
Yes, yes. So you are correct. It does start very early. And what we found is that the amount of time that it takes to get our kindergarten and first grade students on Chromebooks at the beginning of the year and to be able to even just do the assessment, we weren't getting good results. Actually, I would say that we are getting better, and we're getting more data from DIBELS. It's much more specific. I think actually we would be doing ourselves a disservice by using STAR, because we likely will get sort of this, hey, everybody's doing well, when this is the time that we really want to look at those very small brain size skills, and we want to make sure that they're solid, and we'll see that with DIBELS. So that's the only reason, is to make sure that we don't sort of over-assess in the primary grades. Kevin?
So correct me if I'm wrong, like my understanding, DIBELS is very much more like face-to-face, teacher-student,
It is.
face-to-face.
It's one-to-one.
Whereas STAR is like student on a computer, kind of an interface.
Right.
So especially at like younger grades, you get not only the data, but you get like qualitative information from the teacher interfacing with the student one-to-one about a particular, phonemic awareness or letter sounds or what have you. Like they say, yeah, they were able to do this, but they really struggled to come up with the answers versus a kid that can do it very, very easily.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good information to be gleaned from that.
Right, and we looked at, there was a lot of just feeling like we're navigating more students being able to get on computers the first few days of school rather than actually getting good data that we can use. We do have even though I feel like DIBELS is probably more helpful for us in second grade, we do have students start using STAR in second grade, so we do have that baseline going into third grade. And they're sort of over the, how do I get on my Chromebook in order to use, in order to assess. So second grade can be messy, but we thought that that was better that we're still having them use that in second grade. So is that helpful, Fernanda?
It is. I have a couple more questions, but I don't need to get into the minutia of that right now. But I just wondered about the window in which you test DIBELS, so you do it, you said, in the first few weeks of school?
Yeah, so there's been sort of a shift in thinking in that we, for gosh, as long as I've been in the district, have sort of waited to provide intervention for students. So we sort of waited to assess when they, let them get comfortable, and then we assess. And then what we ended up finding is that, and that's not just us, this is sort of a statewide thing, we found that we really weren't providing those interventions to some of our youngest learners until halfway through the school year. So now we will be assessing, we actually have we've had a calendar all along, but we will be assessing those first 2 weeks of school and prioritizing our primary students to get that data in so that we can, begin right away. So if you think about primary being, as you know, all of, there's so many small skills that they're learning and that they build, especially for reading, that if they miss a half a year of that or they're getting behind, it just sort of grows. So we'll be able to assess right first 2 weeks of the school year. The second one will come in January, and then the third window is about now, end of May, beginning of June. And we have shortened the window to 2 weeks so that we don't feel like that is sort of hanging over you. And principals are sort of, as Michael's mentioned, scheduling them very purposefully so that it's sort of, we get it done and we're moving back onto our regular work. We want the assessments to be sort of a part of what we do, not so much something separate that it feels very
Right,
different.
so a teacher can get through a whole class in 2 weeks of one-on-one testing?
So that's another thing. So for the last 3 years, I've sort of gained, I've spoken with a lot of different folks about, is it better to have the classroom teachers do it? Is it better to bring in a team? Is it meaning an internal team, like collect a team of interventionists, special educators? Is it better to just have interventionists do it? And everybody's split. Everybody has an opinion on it. The most effective thing that we can do is make sure that whoever is assessing is doing it with fidelity. And so we will be clearing the calendars of a lot of people in the fall, including myself, the facilitator of teaching and learning, the pre-K supervisor. Principals will be looking at who they have, who has flex blocks or anything like that. And all of that team will sort of go into classrooms and not necessarily do the assessment, but provide support for the teacher in order so that they can get them done, the interventionists can get them done, when appropriate, special educators. So it's going to be sort of an all hands on deck to be able to support teachers to be able to get it done. Because you're right, it's a short window. Many of our classes are smaller, so we'll look at, our classes that are on the larger end. We'll make sure that, they have more support to be able to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions about the assessments? Oh, thank you. So we have our chronically absent measure from last year, and we will go ahead and put the spring in as soon as the last day of school ends. You'll have that on the 23rd, and then we'll set a goal for 2027. One of our schools is also, this is just an example, has also set a goal of tardiness, of decreasing tardiness. And, while it's not in What Works Clearinghouse, little things like changing their procedures for how students can be dropped off in the morning has sort of decreased some of their tardiness. So our schools are being really creative when they're looking at these goals and the action steps that they're going to take to support our learners. Yes?
You had said that we have to select one health and safety goal for the continuous improvement plan, and we selected absenteeism. When did we select it? How long do we intend to keep that as our goal? What are the other options?
So there many times, so some of our schools have set SEL goals. So sort of like decrease, it can be a decrease in a certain type of behavior. There's lots of things that can be done. I will say that those are much harder to track. It's not that we shouldn't do them, and schools have put things in, they have those goals in their individual sort of forward-facing plans that will go on the website, but those are much harder to track. Like we have Swiss data that we've shared with you in the past, and a decrease in referrals can also mean that we had a decrease in reporting. So we have to be, we try to think about goals that are important. Like we know that if we have, students in school, then, they're here to learn. And so that's why this chronically absent goal still remains, a really important goal. So, but there are certainly, you're going to see some panorama data in a little bit, and looking at panorama data is important for why students come to school. We could have a goal of increasing belongingness. There's lots of things that we can sort of look at. Many times, all of those goals will fall under this, right? So if we increase belonging, then, the likelihood of us decreasing chronic absenteeism is going to fall as well, that decrease. Kevin?
So first, I agree that chronic absenteeism is an important thing to track, so that's great that we're doing that. Do schools, so we have like a core curriculum for reading, which is the Amplify, and then
yes.
we have Bridges for math. Do schools have like an SEL curriculum that's kind of similar to that, like a Wayfinder, a Second Step or something that comes with, data, like collection and like, kind of virtue things that you're working towards, have lesson plans and things like that?
So what we did, is it last year or the year before? It might have been my first year going into the second year. We did purchase the Second Step kits for all the way up, at least through 5th grade. I think it changes once it goes into 6th through 8th.
Yeah, there's a
And at some point, we will do some PD around that. It's, as you know, fitting into the schedule. But we did, because the kits are pretty self-explanatory and you can sort of pull things from them, we thought that at least getting those in the classrooms, all of our K-5 and really K-6, actually, yes, K-6 classes have a morning meeting where they actually address a lot of those things. The goal absolutely down the road would be to formalize a little bit more, but we do have those Second Step, actually that is what we have, those kits for the grade levels. So we'd love it if there was more time. So,
right?
Yeah.
It's always the time.
Yeah. So again, we'll be setting, that should have been on the other end of that. We will be setting attendance goals for chronically absent. And just a reminder that chronically absent is a student that has missed 10% of the school year. So by the end of the school year, that is around 18 days. And that's really for any absences. So that can even be a student who had bad luck and caught, the flu, COVID, and something else for, that can happen. Many times, though, chronically absent, the numbers are much higher than just that 18 days. So these are more of our strategies that we'll be using for, again, overall strategies. The schools have a lot of great ideas that they're going to be using in their building for decreasing chronic absenteeism. And again, some are looking at targeting it based on sort of their school dynamics and where the numbers are. You can see at the bottom, it's not quite on there, that's where Jeff's increasing student belonging and engagement. So, and part of that is, Lori was asking about it earlier. We were speaking about that we put aside some Title IV money to create some different RNESU-wide initiatives. If anybody saw the Brandon or the Pittsburgh Band, the Super Band marched, the RNESU art show, we purchased some things for that, plus we dedicated the time for them to collaborate. So we know that the librarians, we actually, through title money, brought in the speaker, the author, the Vermont art author, with some books purchased for that. So that's a lot of, that's one of those investments that we write for that does support this chronic absenteeism. So a lot of things do fall under that. So I just wanted to sort of share some of the panorama results. And just to note that the OV has been using this data longer. I actually popped in a couple of overtime slides for you. I also want to note that I noticed that we did not have as many students take the assessment in the spring. I still have to sort of look into that. We didn't have as many students take it in the spring as in the fall. So we sort of need to dive into that. So when we're looking at this is thinking about percentages who sort of answered the questions favorably. What I want to point out is that when you sort of dive in to the data, We are really in line with, of course, we always want to grow and we want to be above, right, average, but we are right in line with thinking about school, rural schools of our size throughout the country. We're about in the same percentile area. So just sort of, sharing that piece. This is at the school level, Otter Valley. They look at, again, they've been doing this longer, and I've got a couple of other measures to show, or a couple of other examples to show you. They actually look at the school level and the classroom level. They, Michael sets sort of this random choosing, so I think it's 2, right? A student will sort of take the survey based on 2 specific teachers that they have that year. In the elementary school, we did do it 1 year, and we found that we just weren't getting good classroom data because the questions are really geared towards older students who can sort of look at it objectively and respond. So this is our fall and spring data for, again, school level and classroom data, thinking about belonging, school climate, as well as school safety. And then at the classroom level, we're adding in that pedagogical effectiveness, how students are feeling that they're learning. It's not uncommon to have your elementary students answer, more favorably, if you will, thinking about their school as opposed to the high school. Again, everything was in line with what we see across the country for similar schools. I do want to point out that...
Deb, could I make another quick note for context here? Could you go back? That slide shows it too. It is unsurprising, both at the teacher feedback and the student feedback level, that spring data tends to come back a little bit more negative than fall data, right? So, I want to be cautious about over-interpreting a decline. Like, the reality is that spring teachers are tired, students are tired. Like, we just tend to get less favorable feedback. And I think we see that across our NESU. So just a note there. Yeah, the dip, as Debbie called it.
And so, as you can see, OV's been doing, this one is, I just chose a couple, they all look about the same. This one is classroom belonging, and as you can see, Otter Valley has definitely made, and I say Otter Valley plus some of our sixth grade in our elementary schools, we've definitely made a good strong, some good strong growth with classroom belonging, as well as classroom climate. So, and you can see in other years there were dips in different places. So, but in general, we are increasing that. So that's good news. And once the elementary schools have done this more consistently, this is likely what we'll be looking at rather than just comparing the fall and the spring data. And these are, this year, we started, I think we did it one other year, but we sent out the Panorama Family Survey, and we definitely we got a small number of families who responded. So it's always just hard to know sort of, where these numbers fall. But these are the percentages that we received, pretty much, thinking about learning behaviors, stayed about the same, a little bit of a dip in school climate and a little bit in school safety, but you notice that school safety was sort of the highest of all of what your parents saw, OVUHS, RNESU. These are actually all RNESU scores. We don't have a good way of pulling them apart. So, any questions on the panorama? And again, this is this is one measure that supports chronic absenteeism.
And I would just add, I think you said this, but the reason that we care about this data, we care about it in and of itself, But our theory of action is that if we're focused on school safety, school climate, and school belonging, then kids are more likely to be here and chronic absenteeism will decrease.
And this is one of those data points that it is dependent on a lot of things. How many people answer the survey? Like when we looked at VTCAP, we had 98% of our students take the assessment, so we know that we have the representation. STAR, we can make sure that we have 100% of students or close to take that assessment. This one is a little bit less predictable as far as certainly families responding, as you know, everybody's busy, as well as students. It can be a little hard to get the panorama data. So
we just need to
yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I would love to know how many responses, right? Because is this even statistically relevant, right?
Yeah.
About 20% of families.
Yeah,
So, and which for surveys is not, for like a mass survey is not bad. And also, like I am not convinced that the 20% who responded are representative of all families, which is actually the bigger statistical problem.
Yeah.
Students, I think, I can't speak for other schools, I think Otter Valley came in the 60 to 70% range, and that one, like, we do in school, we require kids to do it. So I think that's true in the elementaries as well. So that data feels more reliable to me because like all kids are asked to and presented with the survey.
Sure. So a lot of, getting more family survey, getting, a large, more representative group will be sort of our brainstorming in the future. Like how do we get more people to, to respond to this survey? So because it is important we have everybody's input. Yes.
One quick suggestion there, sorry, is just using the PTOs would be a great to communicate out, because I think the survey link comes in as a parent in the schools, you get it, but it's kind of like an anonymous paperworky sort of thing.
Sure.
And if you did outreach to the PTOs, you might get a more like personal message to families from people that they know in their communities who are involved with the school saying like, here's what this is and here's why it's important to us.
Right. No, thank you for that suggestion. And that's sort of some of the brainstorming that we need to do to find out, how can we get more input. It's a little tricky because we want to make sure that we're getting our families and not sending out so broadly that we end up, having other folks, answering it that that do not necessarily have the same experiences. So, Leslie?
Under the school climate favorable, I was wondering if there was anything specific that came up, why there was a little bit of a drop there. Is any point out?
Yeah, we do have, we actually just closed the window for this. And there are some open response questions that students can answer. And so part of what we will be doing is diving into those and seeing, do we see any trends with, are there a few things that like multiple students are saying? And sometimes they'll answer it with, like a 3-word phrase, right, that, we can't get much from. But we will be looking at sort of those questions, and now that it's so easy to sort of summarize that with a lot of tools that we have, that we should be able to do that pretty quickly. Yeah. Sure. And when we progress, so we will be progress monitoring this 3 times a year. The first little bit, we progress monitor it actually more often to make sure we get all of the data. But it's at those points that sometimes when we say we happen to find sort of something that has come up repeatedly, that's where we sort of tweak those action steps a little bit and add something in to our goal. Or not into our goal, but sort of in that goal, we add another action step. Yeah, so. It used to be that you just did it once a year and then you never looked at it again until the following year. But now, not are they only requiring us to, it's good work to look at it throughout the year. So, other questions? That was a lot of information. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ben. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
And I will bring, another board asked for it, I'll bring I'll get it sent out to you, a short sort of understanding of each of the measures, and then I'll add it to the other board too, like an example, Kevin, of what each assessment looks like.
Great, thank you. Okay, board professional development. We do have one final policy governance virtual forum. It's happening this Thursday, June 4th at 6 o'clock. That link is on the RNESU calendar for any board members who want to attend that training. Moving on, we do have monitoring report 2.9 equity that should be in your packet. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Natalie. Is there?
Second.
Thank you, Leslie. Any discussion or questions?
The only thing I wanted to add is, if you note, I reported partial compliance
Yeah.
as opposed to full compliance, and that's because of the very last statement of the policy itself, where it says the superintendent shall identify and report on outcome indicators. We have not had an effort to identify what those outcome indicators are, so I would like to spend some time this summer and early next year identifying what those outcome indicators are. While there are things like that are mentioned here as far as of hiring and other items, they are not explicitly outcome indicators. And so I would like to spend some time developing those so I can add them to the interpretation.
Way to get ahead of it. That was my only question.
Cool. Anyone else? Okay, and all those in favor of approving equity monitoring report 2.9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Cell phone policy discussion. Michael.
That's me. Renee, do you have our slides? And then maybe that clicker that Debbie got to use.
Have this. Did you send them to me?
Melinda put them in.
Oh, there's, then I will run them from the packet.
I'm joined today by two associate principals who do, I don't know, somewhere between 90 and 95% of the work around cell phones in our building. Really deserve the credit for the work this year. So tonight, as Renee pulls that up, what we want to do is we recognize that the board has been having conversations about the new state legislation around cell phones. We wanted to share our experience, what we've been working on at Otter Valley. We want to share the broader statewide and regional context of what people have been doing. We have some data from our teachers about their experiences with our work thus far. We'll tell you a little bit about some of the changes we're considering for next year, considering or have planned to implement their draft form. And then just our kind of recommendations for what we feel like we need from the board.
Okay, I'm just gonna have to share the PDF.
I'm running out of material today.
I know, I'll just have to share the PDF, and so we will, let me see what happens.
Joel's gonna dance. Your clicker won't work.
He's a
then, right?
Yeah, your clicker won't work.
I've already been thinking of my interpretive dance thing.
Share. Okay, so let me make this bigger.
So just to start with if you go down to the second slide, what the goals of the model policy are that's sitting in front of you. Cell phone free school environment, right? And there's 3 reasons we want to do that: focus, mental health, and social cohesion, right? So that is kind of, I think those are a super useful set of ways for thinking about why we're trying to restrict cell phone use in our building, and I appreciate that policy. So what we have to do is if you adopt the model policy, we have to identify the routines, staff responsibilities, and communication strategies. We have to provide storage of all student cell phones and other prohibited devices, right? So that's smartwatches, headphones, really anything internet connected. How we monitor compliance, where they're stored, just the general procedural work. And then new, at least for our world, is it explicitly asks us to think about stuff that's happening outside of the school and outside of the school day. So field trips, extracurricular activities, and that's something that we haven't really spent as much time with at Otter Valley, although I think it's an important conversation. So far, we feel like our current procedures have us in line with bullets 1, 2, and 3, and then that fourth one is something we need to look at. I know we have folks who are new to the board, and maybe folks that really know what we're currently doing. So this year, it's been this way for a long time in the middle school. In the high school this year, we went all in with an 8 to 2:55 band. So from the time kids start their classes till the time we dismiss them, cell phones are away and out of sight. They can be stored in one of 4 locations: lockers, backpacks, cars, or in the main office. I will say that we have students who store them in their pocket, and we have made a deliberate decision for a variety of reasons not to police them. So if it is seen, it's confiscated by administration. Administration does 100% of confiscations. We don't ask teachers to do that. And then if you've accumulated a couple of violations of that, you will have a varying length of needing to turn in your phone when you arrive to school. So I think right now it's a 5-day ban for the 3rd violation, 10-day ban for the 4th. The Vermont Principals Association has been gathering feedback from their members about what is happening around the state in terms of cell phones. Essentially, what they're seeing is that bell-to-bell cell phone restrictions, like we have at Otter Valley, are widely implemented across the state, even in advance of the state law coming through. School staff are very much in support. We're over time, after an initial blip, you see fewer referrals to the office for cell phone issues. And then it's also creating some new challenges to think about, right? So bathroom use, smartwatches, what happens in off-campus learning. They didn't go into detail about what they mean by equity concerns for some students, but I do think there are some questions about who is least safe in our schools and the benefits that they have for being able to access regular communication home or document evidence of bad things happening in school. So I'm guessing that that's what that's suggesting. And basically there's 2 different ways that this is happening. One is the off and away, which is what we have. Turn it off, keep it away. And some schools, fewer, are doing a locked storage model. In Rutland County, just to kind of give you in the region, this has been a conversation. We meet quarterly with Rutland County principals through Stafford. And this has been a topic of conversation through many. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a super quick question. I know some kids like their Dexcoms and stuff like that maybe connect to their phones. What are we doing about that?
You need to tell me what that
is. It's like a blood sugar, health devices, question. Stuff like that.
So that is specifically outlined in our policies and in the state law, that there is a process through which it can be allowed for specific medical needs within a student's 504. Okay. Yeah, and we have a couple here at OV that have that exemption. Does that answer your question? So in Rutland County, currently we are tied for the most restrictive in terms of cell phone access. Other schools have, similar to what we have, a bell-to-bell ban and significant turn-in requirements for kids who violate those policies. There are a few schools that are still that are using an away during instructional time approach, and that they're allowing cell phone use either at passing times in lunch or just during lunch, although all schools are going in the direction of off and away for next year. At one point in the conversation, all schools were indicating that they do not intend to collect all student cell phones at the door. That has changed at least a little, where I know GRCSU is discussing the process of collection. I don't have details on that, but for the most part, principals are saying the current approaches are working well. I'm going to turn it over to Abby, I think, who's going to talk about how all this is going for us.
So we have some data that we mostly pull out of SWIS. That's our behavior referral management system. So when a student has an issue in school, a teacher or staff member puts in a behavior referral. And we've had 407 SWIS referrals for technology total. That includes personal use technology like cell phones and earbuds, and school issued like doing something on your Chromebook improperly. So last year we had 84 totals. You can see it was a pretty big jump. It feels like 10,000 to me. 407 seems small, but it's our second highest. Technology is second highest number of referrals by category, under skipping, and ninth last year. So it's gone up quite a bit, and it represents 13.6% of all of the SWIS referrals that we have.
And just to be clear, like it going up is in large part because it is now banned, right?
Correct.
There's no, last year, if you had your phone out during lunch, there's no behavior issue, right? Now it is.
Like we created a rule, and now we're responding to it, and this is how often and how much we're responding to it. 75% of teachers rated, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, out of 4 or 5 on a 5-point scale, 5 being a highly effective policy. And then you'll notice we've got 187 total high school personal electronics and 20 middle school. That is not entirely accurate because when you put in a referral, it says technology and you can identify whether it's school issued or personal. So we're missing some of the general, like if somebody didn't put in that subset, that's why 187 and 20 don't equal 407 or the bigger amount. So, but that's what the system is telling us, right? So we can add that information to be more specific. So overall, we implemented a policy. It's going well if you consider that we don't nearly as often have technology that's being used inappropriately, as personal technology in classrooms during instruction. That was the huge goal. I think that's working fairly well. And the reason I think that is not just because I deal with it, but if you go to the next slide, we surveyed staff roughly a month ago. And they gave us some quantitative and qualitative feedback. So if 3 is neutral and 5 is highly effective, the staff said that the policy effectiveness is at a 4.2. The impact on classroom engagement is at a 4.3. And impact on student behavior is at a 4.0. So we're seeing a positive effect of the policy according to the people who are monitoring the instructional space. Qualitatively, they support, there's a big cultural shift for teachers to no longer have to be the person, they say, hey, you gotta take this down to the office, but they don't have to like handle an iPhone themselves and try to figure out what to do. And that preserves a lot of, I think, of an important relationship between students and teachers, and reduces friction in the classroom. It's a very simple thing that they need to do, and students are used to it, and they generally comply, and if they don't, we have ways to deal with that. Some of the things that they consider as potential changes, we have a bathroom loophole, right? Like if students do hold the phone on them, they may use it to go to the bathroom or go to the bathroom to use it. We could have full-on collection protocols, something that they may or may not be in favor of. It would require some resources, both in time, in capital, and in thinking about the schedule even. There is an issue with Chromebooks being used to be distracted in the same way that a phone was, right? So we have software and technology called Blocksy that, you know, teachers can monitor what students are doing on a computer, but you can imagine I'm teaching you all, and I'm on a computer monitoring what you're all doing on your computers while I'm trying, you know, like that can be tricky. Plus, there are workarounds and students know them. So there are times when that's an issue. And earbuds and smartwatches, you know, like, can you tell if I have the earbuds in right now? Right, so like, there's a lot of workarounds. Teenagers are very good at it. Hats and hoods and hair, so there's things that we're not catching, but that's gonna be the case no matter what we do, right? So I think these quotes kind of give you a sense that there's some distraction around any technology in front of a teenager. I would say there's some in front of any of us, right? But most folks, I think it's working pretty well, and there's some more work to be done around how we work on things like earbuds and headphones. And I think Joel's going to talk a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have all the words like they have, so I'm just going to try to keep it short. But happy Pride, everybody. Continue bell-to-bell ban from 8 to 2:50. So these are the procedures that we are proposing moving forward for you all to consider.
Renee, can you scroll up a little bit? Because that short link at the bottom, no, other way. Sorry, Dad. That little one, people can type that in, and that's the actual draft procedure.
I think it's in your board packet.
Yeah, it should be for you guys, but at home, if they're looking, they can see the draft.
So we are proposing a revision to our second offense position that we take here, and that is by keeping the middle school as it remains. It is a solid process by which we follow in middle school, but at the high school level, we have this past year required a parent to come and pick up, a guardian to come and pick up the device after school lets out. And there have been some issues where some students leave school every day early, and it's impractical to have a guardian come and pick that phone up. And also there's a lot of after-school activities that happen as well. So we are proposing taking that second offense with the parent pickup away, but increasing the turn-in, the 10-day, from a 5-day to a 10-day turn-in plan for the second offense. So by removing the parent pickup, we are increasing the penalty for a second offense from 5 to 10-day tech ban on their phone, and then increase the third offense to a 20-day turn-in plan. But then additional consequences will apply for those students who are not following through, and those are consequences that we share with the families ahead of time. And so I think for the increase of third offense to the 20-day turn-in plan, we will require parent or guardian to pick up the device at the end of the day on the third offense. So, yeah. And then we want to talk about field trips, extracurricular activities.
Can I just say something really briefly before Joel dives into what we're doing? We have had 3 significant student escalations when, in a less structured setting, field trip, off-campus activity, a staff member has had to address cell phone use, right? And tried to have the student turn the phone into them. So I want to just acknowledge that this feels a little bit less restrictive, and also I want to encourage you all to think about the experience of a teacher is out in the woods or on a field trip in Burlington without an administrator around to be kind of the heavy. And there's a reason that we don't want to put our teachers in that situation, and that's why this is going to read a little bit more permissive than maybe we would like to be in an ideal world.
So for the field trips and extracurricular activities, we are proposing that let the advisor dictate what that will be on their trip or at the game. And then the advisor will have to give that information to the students well ahead of time, so that way the students are aware of what the expectation is moving into the trip. But I don't think that we would be in a good position of dictating that when we may be far away, and I don't want the teachers to have to deal with a power struggle in the middle of an event. Yes?
Is this a requirement of statute?
I don't know if it's in statute, but it's in it is required that the policy you adopt address procedures for. I think the short answer is yes. I'm not sure if it's written into statute or just in the model policy that's come out.
Okay. But so it's up to us to decide if we want to enforce any, I don't know, consequences at a baseball game.
Good question. So you are permitted to adopt the model policy or adopt a policy that is more stringent than the model policy. So you can't adopt a policy that says don't do anything with extracurriculars, right?
Or just ignores it.
Yeah, we will have to write procedures for extracurricular activities.
And how do they define extracurricular?
Anything.
Field trips.
Buses,
Yeah.
field trips.
So sports.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think what Michael was getting at is that if we don't adopt any kind of policy, it is automatically assumed that we have the state level law/policy in place. And so I think where it's going to get bizarre is like, let's say we have a home game, right? And kids who are in the stands watching have their phones, whereas the team or whoever's being watched, they are under a different guidance.
And you all could say, right, you could adopt a policy that says if a student is on OVU property, they may not have a cell phone, right? I would highly encourage you not to do that. But you can be more strict. All that we are required to do is define our procedures for how we're going to handle it, which doesn't mean a total ban.
Right, it could be.
Our procedure could be they can use it on field trips and after school.
And my understanding is some coaches do have more restrictive because of the culture of their teams, and they say, we're not going to do this, you're not allowed on the butt, whatever. And then some are different. There are some, like, if you're here for play practice, you're here for like hours and hours and hours, right? So that can be a little bit different too. So I think.
Or you have a 2-hour bus ride.
Exactly.
You know, they should be able to listen to some music or.
Yeah, and if we go back to like social cohesion, promoting focus and mental health, right? I'm not sure that, on the 2-hour bus ride that.
Michael, if I could add something, in the elementary school was just having this discussion about, they were headed to the Great Escape, and they were speaking about, I know that when I was the principal at Lothrop, we just had sort of very specific rules about how they could use their cell phone, and we really didn't have any problems with it and parents tend to like them to have it when they're away on a field trip. So it's just something to think about, that it's already being considered at the elementary school, like how they're going to come together on that.
So I think we have one more slide, which is essentially, here's our recommendation to you. I would encourage you to adopt the state model policy language. I think it's pretty good. One thing that I want to be clear about is that our interpretation and the Vermont Principals Association's interpretation of provide storage of all students' cell phones and other prohibited devices does not require that we physically store the device. So for me, our current procedure of lockers, backpacks, cars,
my office,
or Abby,
or me.
that we feel meets the language. So we think that if you adopt the model policy, we will be in alignment with that. But we also feel that you could adopt the model policy, and we will not be in a place where we have to collect all student cell phones, and we don't want to. We don't think it's in our best interest as a school to do that. Braden?
So next year, would you be more, stringent on folks with phones in their pockets?
So, yeah, good question. We have, I alluded to this earlier, right? But we don't want to put our teachers in a place of telling a student what's in their pocket and potentially exposing themselves to allegations of poor staff behavior. So I do not intend to be to ask staff to be more stringent on paying attention to what's in students' pockets. What we do have, right, so from time to time a kid will say, well, I wasn't even using my phone, it just fell out of my pocket. We say, well,
you got to turn it in.
It's not allowed to be in your pocket, so that was a violation there. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to our faculty or even our administrators to police that.
I'm just picturing the situation if we went with it like more stringent interpretation of the policy where you all have to like operate some sort of like entrepreneurial business where like every single student is checking in a phone and checking out a
smartwatch, earbuds.
Spend the entire school day getting through the line, and then the line would commence again for them all to leave. Is there any risk if we adopt the model policy language that interpretation could come down and we end up like cursing our administrators with like the like totally unfair and unproductive administrative burden of checking in and out every single piece of technology that any student ever wants to use?
To be fair, we would probably curse you for adopting that policy.
So what I would say is that was the original legislative intent. But through language interpretation or word interpretation, we can get around, because they didn't truly explicitly say that. If we adopt the model policy, we can do what is the recommendation.
Okay, and so the legislators essentially would have to go back and amend their legislation to put their terrible idea into practice.
And I think that would be
Is there any data regarding differences in behaviors and effectiveness between locked away and put away schools?
So not at a state level. The VPA doesn't have that level of granularity. Abby was digging into some research that came out.
It was in that 802.
Yeah, the Heckinger report,
Yeah.
is the sort of like the Atlantic for educators.
It's, yeah, I mean, I can't speak to it specifically without having it in front of me, but there is no research to say that this is a catch-all or it's going to be the panacea that fixes all of our behavior and attendance issues, because it is very hard to study in a control group, if you can imagine. And the studies that they've done around the world and in the United States have been pretty inconclusive in terms of whether or not it's effective for instruction. There's usually like a blip of behavior, maybe it gets a little better, but this isn't like solving everything, and I think that's kind of how it is.
I'm worried about seepage, and by that I mean the pockets, the earbuds, the smartwatches, the inventiveness of students to find workarounds. I'd like to see a policy where we are trying to stay on top of those things and nip them in the earbud.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have that policy, and I think that the infinite creativity of teenagers will survive any policy we put in front of them. And I can give you probably 5 or 6 different ways in which that happens. I don't think that collecting is going to solve your problem unless you're metal detecting on the way in to prove that no one has a device. Like, there's lots of things that go with making sure that they're really, truly not on a person, that create a type of culture that's more invasive, I think, than we want. And also, people who want to bring phones in are going to hand you a phone and have another phone. Like, this is, it's just, and we can have yonder pouches, and they're thousands and thousands of dollars and are no more effective than what we're doing from what I've seen. So,
Caitlin has a question.
What about, okay, like morning meeting or TAs or, back in high school, there was 10 in my morning meeting. What about when we walk in, when the teacher calls the name to see who's here or not, they watch them shut the phone off? I don't know.
Yeah, so
Turn the device
Abby
off.
convened a focus group around this last spring, and I think because that is kind of where we had started our thinking, was this year we would have kids turn them in either at the beginning of the class or beginning of the day. And teachers' very clear feedback was, we don't want to be the people who are on the front lines of having those negative interactions with kids about these devices that they have like very unhealthy relationships with. So that was teacher feedback, which we took and went in that direction. I think the other thing, right, and one of the reasons that I feel that this has been more effective this year is because we are not asking, 50, 60 different people to enforce something in the same way. It's very simple for teachers. You see it, you send them to us, and we take care of it. Then one teacher doesn't do it one day because they're behind and forget, or like that feels like it has more seepage and loopholes than just like keep it away for the day, and if we see it, it's going to be ours. Mm-hmm. It's been our experience. Barbara?
Do you have any sense from students? Has there been a shift in the culture about the implementation of this policy, and have you seen like an arc of acceptance or
Overall, I think we saw the first day we had 10 cell phones in our possession. By
First 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, rough. Yeah. It's just like anything you're trying to work on.
I'm just wondering, like the other end of the school year. Here we are at the end. Like, have you? Are kids basically like, I'm talking to my friends more, or I'm paying more attention in class? Are you getting any anecdotal reports from?
So, at the middle school level, we have not had as big of an issue as at the high school level. As you saw in previous slides, there were 20 infractions for the year so far of tech violations. And I can say that anecdotally, I've had students come to me and say they like having them put away because they can go outside and they can play with their friends and not doom scroll over past messages. And so I do get that, and we still have our issues every once in a while where a kid is refusing to turn it over, it's their property, but it's very infrequent at the middle school level. I think that the elementaries are setting us up for a good transition, and the fact that we've been doing this for a couple of years now at the middle school level.
I mean, at the high school, for the most part, when I ask for one now, I just get it. That's a very different tone than defiance, which is uncomfortable, right? So not every day, and who knows when there's a person who's really, really dug in about it. It could be at any moment. However, the tone of it is much more like, oh yeah, okay, sure. They know that we'll take them, and they know that they won't get them back, and that is, something that generally folks don't want. I don't know what you want to add.
That summarized it. I will say, we have an increase in other behaviors, and I'm wondering, right, if instead of in the lunchroom we're like scrolling Facebook, if we're not doing that, we throw grapes instead, right? So, for example, I think like there is maybe some anecdotal evidence that, like, yep, it's increasing social cohesion, and maybe not always in like ways where kids are going to and that's okay, right? I think that's better. To me, that's better. I'd rather have grapes being thrown than kids like bullying each other.
Yes. The other thing I'll say is that when I walk into classrooms, I almost never see them, and when I do, we have conversations with teachers, right? So it's like, oh, okay, like we're going to talk about this and really make sure that you understand it as our expectation as your administration, that we're all following this, because it makes it very difficult for another teacher when that's not the case.
Well, about the grape throwing, it was a lot worse in 10th grade than it has been since. So this year it's not been that bad. I remember it was not good. But I think in regards to at least 11th and 12th graders who I really interact with and how they're viewing it, I think most people were really angry about it at first, but then they came to not care too much. Now you still have some folks who every chance they get, they'll take out their cell phone and go and hide in a corner and scroll and do whatever they want to. But I think generally it's not that big an issue. And certainly whenever I'm at lunch, I think there's a lot more conversation between everybody in lunch, because there's not people just sitting there on their phone or TikTok or whatever.
Okay, well, thanks.
Did you have a question, Kate?
So the way an angle I'm seeing that's, I think is great, and we want to keep sort of the positive reinforcement thing going and not making this a negative reinforcement too much, is we are building global citizens here, and there's a social construct in society that there's a certain time and a certain place for anything. And there are points in your day and in your life as an adult, as a person out in society and in the workplace, where it's not appropriate to be doing those things. And we're setting kind of that groundwork to say, as well as being other boundaries of like the social interaction expectations in the world, we're reinforcing that this is one of those, where like right now, we as adults should not be sitting here not paying attention to the person in front of us. We're teaching, we're showing that there's value in that, and there's importance in that, and there's reason for that to exist beyond just the classroom. There's respect, there's interaction requirements and things that come later in life. And if guidelines and boundaries aren't at least displayed, then or with them being displayed, these kids, as they get out into the world, are going to know, oh wait, maybe there's a reason why I shouldn't be playing solitaire or posting on Snapchat pictures of the other people in this professional space.
I will say that from the HHB, the bullying end of things, it would take me a while to go through, but I can tell you, we still have a bunch of reports and we do investigations, and that's on par with past years. However, very little of it in comparison is online during the day. We get stuff from the weekends and evenings, and on occasion, I think so. Yes, I would say yes. Now we get some in person, right? Like, but those are seen. And so when you remove this invisible underbelly of social structure, it, I think, has some pretty massive effects that we're only seeing a little bit of. That's my theory.
So I looked at my computer died. A bunch of examples from other schools that the Vermont Principals Association provided, and noticed that our consequences are much harsher than some of the other schools, right? So I'm curious what's the rationale for jumping to 10 and 20 days? Because to me, as a parent, 20 days seems really excessive for me to try to tell my son to keep his phone away for 20 days, right? That's a long time. And I've seen, like, other schools were doing three days on the second offense and then 5 days on the third offense. So what's the rationale for 10 days and 20 days? And I didn't see that in Montpelier. I didn't see it at those other schools.
I think one is regionally, that's pretty consistent. Mill River, Rutland have similar.
Rutland's 20 and
approaches to
40, I believe. Stafford is 20 and 40, right? Because it's an important restriction in the learning environment. It's capacity. So I have myself and half of a behavior specialist who works on this. We don't have an infinite number of people to go and follow up on the kids who don't come, and so what we see right now is we have like a warning system where they just kind of play the number and like, okay, like I can have it out whenever, and maybe I'll get caught. When they know they're gonna have to turn it in for 5 days, they're really, really like, oh, now it's serious. But that doesn't happen until multiple phases down, right? I think it makes sense because they're never supposed to have it out at all, and they know that. It's not like it's an unknown, right?
You don't lose anything with a turn-in other than turn.
Right. It's not like
it's the same level of access that you.
Right. I'm just trying to understand
during the day.
a jump to 20 days.
I think that it also needs a little bit of a bite attached to it in order for it to really let them know that we are serious about this and we need to be on the same page.
So 5 days seems like enough.
I think that's fair feedback. I think it's worth.
20 days is that's an entire month.
I would also add that one of the shifts, right, was that we had the parent pickup thing, and that didn't.
And that
work
does
for
not
a number
work.
of reasons, right? So we're saying we don't think we want to do that, but we also need to. And 5, 10, I think those are both reasonable numbers to consider in that. We need to use concepts of progressive discipline. The first time, hey, we're going to take this for the day, you'll get it back at the end of the day. We need something to.
Which I don't disagree with. It's the number 10
sure.
and 20 that I don't agree with. And I feel like my kids should have a little ownership, or they will need to feel, I don't know, when a teacher sees a kid on the first offense and they pull it out, can it just be, hey, you're not supposed to have that, and then let them earn it? I don't know, jumping to a severe consequence and saying, hey, take that down to administration the very first time.
So our experience with warnings, right? This was another thing from teachers was, I get a warning on Monday, or I get a warning in block 1, go to block 2, they don't know that block 1 gave me a warning.
So that's what I was reading in some of the other schools is they give it to the teacher and then you have to communicate that. So why are we not involving teachers at all?
Because they chose to not be and applauded us for doing it.
Yeah.
Because it takes away the time that they have to spend in
In
the
that.
instructional environment, getting into a power struggle and breaking a relationship that they need to help a student learn. And I don't know of a single teacher, maybe there are, but I don't know of any that are like, oh, I really wish I could just collect it.
And also, there's not really a safe location in a classroom for a teacher to store, so if a student did get sticky fingers or somebody got sticky fingers, then if the teacher collects it, then by far that teacher is responsible for it. So it's not really responsible, he shouldn't be held, the teacher should not have that ownership of that student who broke the rule.
We want our teachers focused on teaching.
Yeah.
I will power struggle with a student all day.
But I
right?
also feel like sending the student out of the classroom during teaching time, is disruptive to the class.
For one student,
Yeah.
but then oftentimes other students then don't pull out their phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
Like
the
what we
message
had before was, put your phone away, put your phone
Yeah.
away.
Message
You
has
put your
been
phone
sent.
away for the second time, but I don't want to send you out because I feel awkward, right? Like, it was pretty extreme, and I think the teachers are tired of that. This is a draft policy because I'm not going to be here next year to implement it, and so there's another principal coming in with perspective from another big school. I think I was curious about the GRSCU all collections because there's some really small schools, small high schools particularly. When you're talking about the numbers that we're talking about, it's significant. So I think for me, it's a draft for this team to work on over the summer.
I can say my niece, who just graduated from a very large school in Pennsylvania with 400 students, and their policy, they bought those shoe things, and the kids just stuck them in the thing when they walked in the door, and then they grabbed them when they left.
And that's how
And that worked, and for a class of 50, you know, and that's what I'm thinking of when you have a first offense. You go stick it in the thing, and I don't know, I just feel like our consequence, jumping straight to 100 on the very first offense seems.
I would just challenge and say to you, Natalie, that we're on the ground doing this work. We're gathering feedback from teachers. We are making sure that they have what they need, and this is consistent with what they've said. So I think I hear the feedback. I understand and I agree with a lot of it. And also, like, as I'm responsible for the experience of students and teachers in the building and wanting to address this really big need that we have, I think I want to honor their sort of like experience in actually trying to do this with kids. And it may be different, right? There may be other schools who have been able to do it a different way, but this is, I mean, I also think this is working for us, right? Like, we're seeing teachers, you know, and high school teachers are never super enthusiastic about things, and like they're saying this is overwhelmingly positive perceptions of the impact that this procedure has had on student engagement. Like that means a lot to me, and that means that the approach we're taking is generally in the right direction. Does it need refinement? Absolutely, but it has made a shift in our engagement.
Yep, and it's one less thing on the teacher's plate to have to worry about, because they're always wanting to have something removed, so we wanted to remove that for them and let the administration take care of that for them.
I'd like to move to adopt the administration's recommendations.
Kevin, before you do that, can I make two other recommendations? And I think Caitlin also had a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I do agree with the 10 to 20 day one. Like, I mean, I understand every kid is different. We have rule followers after they break a rule. We have ones that really like to push the boundaries, and then we have ones that really, really like to push the boundaries. So, like, I mean, are we going to be harder on the ones that, okay, I'll listen, I'm sorry, or are we going to, like, be super hard on them, but the ones that are really, really not listening, you know, we have to have the same kind of cohesive punishment. I don't like the word punishment, but like
consequence.
It's a consequence. It's a punishment.
It's a punishment.
Doing something you're not supposed to do in school.
right, because like, I mean, one person can ruin a whole day for everybody. You know, like
we know.
Yeah.
there is a level of like adaptive decision making and personalization that goes into this, right? There's one kid who, if I told her to turn in her cell phone, she was going to tell me 100 different things that she thought about me. She would turn it into a trusted person,
right?
Say half the things she thought about me, and then the trusted person would turn it into me. Like just little things that sort of grease the wheels a little bit for individual kids. I want to address Kevin's point about CFIDs. Like, I do think this is worth looking at a board level and right? Like, ask us how it's going, give us the opportunity to share what we're doing and what we feel like we need. And then the third thing I want to recommend is I think, speaking to the educator experience about Chromebooks replacing cell phones and just sort of the new sort of zeitgeist around this stuff, I would encourage the board to pay attention to legislative developments and other like information coming out about other electronic devices, school-supported electronic devices, one-to-one Chromebooks. There's a lot happening where there's conversations about restricting it. There was a sort of ill-formed bill in the legislature that hasn't gone anywhere about like creating an educational technology database, AI bans. There's a lot going on that is separate from cell phones that I would encourage the board to sort of keep abreast of. I, for one, as a parent and a principal, am concerned not just about the cell phone use, but about the amount of time our students are on Chromebooks, right? Particularly at the younger grades. So I just want to encourage, like, no action on that, just awareness of that as a next sort of set of developments in this work.
Can I have just one follow-up question? Sorry.
Sure.
What about teachers and cell phones? So are they allowed to have them in their pockets and sitting on the desk, or do they have to have them put away?
We ask teachers to model good cell phone
Okay, good.
behavior. We've called some people in and had some tough conversations about that this year, for sure.
Yep, I think I got rid of my smartwatch and have a swatch, and just, I think as we model what we're trying to do, it has a pretty big impact for kids because they're very, very savvy, and they walk in and they say, well, my teacher did this or whatever, And teachers are professionals who are allowed to make a personal phone call during their planning time or whatever, that's an expectation that I would want as a professional in the space, right? So we just ask that they use their judgment, and when they struggle with that, we can help.
Before the motion, I just wanted to say.
There won't be a motion.
Oh, okay. All right,
And I'll
great.
explain that.
I just wanted to say, I mean, having been part of the discussions over cell phone policies for quite a long time, kudos to you guys for implementing it and carrying it out this year. This is hard work you're doing, and you're benefiting, like you said, the learning environment, the kids and the teachers, and supporting the people in your care. So thanks for doing it.
Thank you. You're here.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah, so in regards to your wanting to have a motion, on the agenda, there doesn't talk about any kind of motion, it just talked about a discussion. So they were here to give their high points in that. We will bring that back for a motion to adopt
To say,
later.
in the future.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
No, right, so, okay. But thank you very much for being here tonight, we appreciate it. And thank you for doing the heavy lifting. Okay, so it's 8:13. We have a lot to discuss, so I'm going to defer a few things, but I do need a motion to extend our meeting until 8:45.
So moved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed?
A reluctant motion and a reluctant
Yeah,
aye.
well, I get it, I really get it, so. Okay, so I'm gonna move our monitoring reports to our next meeting. The next item on our agenda is board member resignations. I want to let you all know that Lauren Thomas has decided to let go of her position as the Brandon rep, and that Rhiannon has decided to let go of her Whiting rep, mainly due to family situations and things that are beyond their control, and that they didn't feel they could give the board their full attention at this time. They do hope to come back at some point. If there's an open position. So what I need to know from you guys is, do you want to solicit letters of intent from potential new board members from a Brandon rep? We need a Brandon rep and we need a Whiting rep. I don't suspect that we will actually ask for those letters until September, but I want to know what you guys think about that. Before we move on.
Is that traditionally what's been done?
Well, normally we don't meet during the summer anyway. We are meeting during the summer this year, but I think that trying to bring members on, if we ask for letters and we don't pull someone on until July and then they don't start till August anyway, it seems apropos to me to wait until, after our retreat to ask for letters and bring new board members on.
When are these seats up for?
So the Brandon rep is up as of March of 27, which is this next year. Whiting is the year after, but anybody who is appointed to the board will have to run for that seat in March anyway.
That's what I was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you also have the ability not to fill those positions, and we do have 11 of the 13 members at this time. So I'm just putting it out there, think about it. You can decide what you want to do at the next meeting. Okay?
And we don't have that issue anymore of having to have a certain amount of people here.
No, we just have to have a quorum, which is 7 of the 13 members. We have to have 7 at all times, so.
Can I say
okay.
one thing? Since in the task force talk at the beginning, we're thinking a lot about community engagement over the summer.
Sure.
It seems like we might want to think about time, like we're going to be going out and talking to the community and hearing from people who
Yeah,
are
I mean, we
interested.
can mention it, but that we're not gonna actually appoint someone until,
Yeah,
you know,
so
whatever.
I think it might be interesting as an opportunity because, you know, the task force stuff is important, the stuff with 955 is important, and there may be people whose interest is piqued by that.
Sure.
Who would be valuable members.
Yep, absolutely. I also want to take the moment to thank both of them very much for their time on the board. We will miss them, or at least I think we will miss them. I will miss them.
We will miss them,
So
for
yes,
sure.
we will miss them. While we're also talking about board member resignations, Braden is graduating in 10 days or so. So he's going to be leaving the report as well. So
Hopefully, he hasn't officially graduated.
Braden, I'll still shake your hand. I'll be there. The two of us will take care of it for you. Wink, wink.
Don't throw any grapes between now and
Right, right. Or at least not at us.
test.
You know, that's right. No grape throwing at us. But anyway, so I just wanted to say thank you. I know your time here on the board was short, but you've been very valuable as far as being willing to give your opinions, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Braden.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is tax anticipation borrowing. Is Brenda still here? There she is. Look at, so, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
All right. Yes, you kind of do this every year. It is really just to get us over the cash flow shortages because we have 6 towns. They all pay taxes to us on different schedules. So we don't get that, we don't get all of our money on July 1st. There's a formula that determines how much money you can borrow. It was 2.9 and change based on that formula. We are recommending that you borrow it in a line of credit fashion, which just similar to any of us who have businesses with line of credits. When you borrow it, you pay interest. When you don't borrow anything, you don't pay anything. The interest rate is 4%, and we do typically run really tight and really close in for the first payroll in August. Then we get an influx of money from Brandon, and we might get tight again in December or January. But we do need to borrow some in between, and we do have a budget for the interest payments. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
How long of a period of time do we
It's for the whole year.
But I mean, how long do we actually borrow the money? Is it just like for 30 days or?
We can borrow it and return it as soon as possible. I don't remember the exact amount of times, but generally speaking, as soon as we get either a payment from the state, which happens September 10th, December 10th, and April 30th, or from one of our towns, we usually can pay everything off, and we do.
Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. So, any other questions about this? I do need someone to make the motion to approve the tax anticipation borrowing of $2,993,150 at 4% interest rate from the community bank for the period July 1, 26 to June 30th, 27.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Did you get that, Amber?
Natalie and Barbara.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay. The other item that we need to make a motion about regarding tax anticipation borrowing is to authorize the superintendent and board chair to sign the documents so that we can get that line of credit in place. So can I get someone to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Barbara and Natalie, so just the other way around. Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you for that. All right, estimated year-end financial review. So there's a recommendation that any surplus funds that we have should go into our facilities fund this year. Do you have any information at this point?
To give you a draft, I'm pretty sure it was in the packet. I do want to speak to why we don't wait until everything is said and done. And I think that's because you don't want to meet on June 27th or 28th, but I'm more than welcome to bring you a board meeting.
Well, so we have to meet prior to June 30th to transfer the money. We cannot wait until after June 30th to do that,
But
correct?
we are meeting on June 23rd.
We only have two options for surplus, right?
Correct.
It's facilities or after school.
Well, you have three. So if
What's the
you do
third?
nothing, statute would say it rolls over and it's returned
Oh,
to
yeah.
taxpayers in '28, not next year. And what that does, and why this board and the community has supported establishing a facility fund, is it builds in a self-imposed cliff. So when you return money to taxpayers, you don't write a check to every taxpayer. You hold it, it comes in as revenue, and therefore reduces your taxes 2 years from now, in 2028. And then when you go to build your 2029 budget, you don't have those funds anymore. So even before you do anything, you're increasing it again.
So Brenda, just so I understand, what number am I looking at? Am I looking at the fiscal year 26 actual under grand total where it shows 1,020,890?
So
You want to look at this? Because I have it.
yeah, I don't
Sorry.
think so.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right line.
My computer just died.
And not the year-end estimate, because there's a
It
year-end
is the
estimate.
year-end estimate line I want you
then
to
it's-
look at.
So it's this one, it's that one.
Right.
The 158,000.
Six, but yes.
156,000.
Yes.
603. Okay.
And then I think there's a report that tells you, well, this tells you kind of where it's coming from.
Where it's coming from?
Is that, yeah, that's the grand total.
Okay, all right.
And I will tell you, at this time of year, we are very conservative. So we are still purchasing things. We are still purchasing fuel, electric, all of those things. They're a little bit more predictable. But we are still making purchases for new chairs and supplies and things at the local level or at the school level. And we are still paying our final health insurance costs.
Can you also indicate that the RNESU budget is not factored into that at all, as far as if there's a surplus from that?
So the RNESU surplus doesn't factor into that because we pay an assessment.
Okay.
So the RNESU surplus always rolls over as a surplus and a reduction of future assessments.
Okay.
So the RNESU costs in there are done.
Are done. Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
I move to put the surplus funds into the facilities fund.
Okay. So 100%? Is that what you're?
100% of whatever that number ends up
Whatever
being.
that number is going to be on June 30th. All right?
Second.
Is there a second from Gabe? All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So why are the facilities fund and the after-school fund the only two options?
Because those are the only two funds that the public has allowed us to create. So at our annual meetings, we have asked for a fund to put surplus funds in if we have surplus funds. And so we've asked for facilities fund way long ago, and we also asked for what's the other one? After school program, thank you. But we have no other funds, and we can't ask, well, we could, I suppose we could ask for another fund, but it would have to be very specific as to what it was for.
Right, you could,
Yeah.
and how it's used.
Right, and that would have to be done at the annual meeting.
Annual meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
And historically, facilities and things like that are what we would typically bond for, and this is where we would get the most return on the long-term investment, as we could diminish what we'd have to bond for, or would likely be bonding for down the road.
So what I would tell you is that the after-school program, now that we are using the Boys and Girls Club, that fund is very seldom, it's not used as much as it had been in the past when we were running the programs ourselves, mainly because we're not collecting monies from people who access those funds anymore, because we were having trouble collecting those funds. And so therefore, that's why we haven't been putting any money into that, because that fund is flush at this point. And the facilities fund, as you know, we do not we don't have a budgeted line for that. So any money that we can put into our facilities fund, as you know, we use that to do all sorts of things during the summer. And if for some reason a boiler blew up, we'd probably exhaust the facility fund immediately.
There's a fair amount of maintenance on our plan that we talked about
Right.
last several months about.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why we do that.
And just to add one more thing to it, the facility fund is specified for what would be considered a capital improvement, which means it doesn't include things like electric and fuel. It includes things like, new lighting or
Or new
removal of
speakers in
asbestos,
the
etc.
auditorium.
As well as repair and maintenance.
Yes,
of
absolutely.
course, too. So
Major
thing-
repairs and maintenance, not,
Major.
Yeah,
Major.
yeah,
It would
yeah.
have to be something that rose to the, if
Yeah.
they break a sink, we're not using the facility fund for that.
It's very,
Right.
like, if you think it extends the useful life of the building,
Right.
facility fund.
Yeah, and it
And
covers,
same with grounds.
and it covers those unexpected,
Yes.
the bigger things. It's not just putting in a better light, it's putting in a light that no longer lights.
Right, well, so like our mold issue, we had a mold issue, we didn't have
Yeah.
insurance to cover that. Our facility fund was used to remediate that issue.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah,
Understanding that the spending that may be outstanding is largely controlled by the schools rather than the central office, so you may not have the degree of predictability. What's your index of confidence on the $156,000 figure in front of us? Like, could it triple? Could it be decreased by a third?
I will always be more conservative in nature. I think that that's what you ask me to be. That's what you pay me to be.
So what does conservative mean here, I guess?
So conservative to me means if we're not certain we're going to have a savings, I'm going to assume that it will still be spent.
Okay.
And so I meet with each of the principals and we go through their budget line by line. Sometimes they know things I don't know, sometimes I know things they don't know. We kind of share our best estimates and our best thoughts at the time. But if there are some things that are unknown or some surprises that might still come, I keep the funds there so that I never want to come to you and say, oops, we ended up with a deficit instead of a surplus.
So it would be less surprising to you if it was significantly above this than it would be if it was significantly less than this?
Correct.
That's what the
Absolutely.
process.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of putting 100% of our facility, of our surplus from fiscal year 26 into our facilities fund, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you for that. This should be quick. 2.3.9, financial conditions. This is our second reading of that policy. It was to, I believe, change the number. Correct? The amount from.
Change it from,
It's like
from the number to the statute.
statute reading. So, can I get someone to make a motion for that, please?
I move to approve it.
So Jess and Natalie, those are the people I heard first.
Yep.
Okay, any discussion regarding this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the change to the financial conditions from changing it to a number to what the actual statute says, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you for that. I'm gonna skip the linkage and advocacy for a minute and we're gonna move to Hawk Hill. Kevin?
Thank you. So I'm going to have two motions for Hawk Hill. The first would be to appoint a student representative, Ezra Satz, who's going to be a sophomore in Upper Moose in the fall, has agreed to do this. I'm very appreciative that he is doing so at a young age. Moose is very important to him, and I think he'll be a great committee member. And then the second is to adopt the forestry management plan that is in your packet today. And what I want to emphasize on that is that the Vermont State Foresters for Rutland County, both of them, the Vermont Land Trust via Pam Burlingame, and the most knowledgeable members of the committee, including Josh Hart, our Moose teacher, had significant input in this. Everybody's agreed to it. I think everybody's happy with it, and I hope the board will be happy with it too.
Nice report.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. Can I get someone to make the motion to approve Ezra Satz as our student rep on the Hawk Hill committee, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, that was Barbara and then Jess.
Yes.
Can I get the spelling of the student's name?
EZRASATZ, I believe.
Yes.
What year is the student?
Sophomore.
Oh, he's a freshman now.
Well, you'll be a sophomore in
Sweet.
the fall. Yeah. Okay. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of Ezra Satz as our Hawk Hill student rep, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. The second piece of this that Kevin alluded to was the forestry management plan. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve the
We
forestry?
have to, by the way, the front cover sheet for signatures is modified slightly from what the one the Hawk Hill Committee adopted, so I guess the motion should include accepting the modified cover sheet.
Okay.
What's the modification?
We didn't have Pam Burlingame's name on it for a signature from the Vermont Land Trust.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, so with that, can I get someone to make that motion?
So,
Thank you, Fernanda. Is there a second?
second.
Thank you, Barbara. Any discussion?
It's a nice report. It's beautiful. It's informative.
Awesome.
I printed it out. I liked it so much.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. All right. All those in favor of the Hawk Hill Forestry Management Plan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
If I can add, and one more thing, the next task is to modify the governance in terms of the committee structure and so forth. That's next year's job.
Okay. Stafford update. Jess?
Nothing to update since the last meeting.
Okay, well, I will give you a small update on Stafford. I went to their graduation on Friday, and it was really great to see so many Otter Valley kids represented. They gave away $35,000 in scholarships, and our kids were well represented in that. So I just want to say congratulations to all of our Stafford, Otter Valley kids that are Stafford, who graduated on Friday.
There are
Also,
several-
maybe worth noting that we have, it's at least one OV kid at Stafford in the National Skills USA.
Three. We actually have three.
It's three of them, yeah.
Yep.
In the National Skills USA this
now?
week, right now.
Right
Yeah,
now,
they're there
yes, they are down there
Yeah.
right now. Yes, Maggie Kingston, Lene, Lana I can't say her name. What's her name? Lana Kumai, I think that's how you say it, and David Bertrand. I know him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, all right, yes, and they are competing down there this week. They'll be back on Saturday. RNESU update. All right, Kevin?
Oh, boy.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No.
wait, you weren't there.
Yeah.
That's right. The update is that Kevin was not there. No, what did we do?
We talked about, I don't know.
Was it the communications? Was it communications?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Jill
Jill
did the
Duty came and
presentation.
talked about
Yeah,
communications.
That's right.
That is correct. Thank you, wherever Jill went.
She left.
All right, yeah.
It was excellent.
So, other than that, really not a lot to talk about at RNESU at this point. Oh, other than you are going to be putting together your plan.
Yeah.
Strategic plan. We did talk about that.
Which we'll talk about a little bit in regards to 955 as well.
Okay, great. Let's see, what else did I write down here? Because my phone is getting ready to die. Board update, other business? Anything from anybody? I think we got a lot on our plate. Superintendent's announcements?
Just with the final education transformation bill passing both the House and the Senate, it's, we'll see what happens when it goes to Governor Scott's pen, either this week or next week. But it's going to, it's a very rapidly coming bill. So like if you've read through it, there's potential that in 22 months we'll be going to a town meeting to decide, or a town meeting date to decide which districts to join. And then a little bit after that, voting for the new school boards and having new districts around the state in fiscal year 30, which is July 29. So That's going to rapidly, well, at the next RNESU meeting, we'll have to appoint a representative to the new CISA board and reorganization board. So that is there's a lot on our plate. So if you can kind of leaf through and pay attention to what is being said at the state level, read through the articles, because there's kind of the calculus of what is happening in our facilities and in our strategic plan have kind of been moved up.
Yep.
So please come with any questions that you may have.
And did you mention the required meetings of required voluntary merger discussions that have to start in October?
Yeah.
Merger prom?
Right, well, it's a required voluntary merger, which I think just means that it's required, so it's not really voluntary. But there you go.
Right.
So that's their way around it.
Voluntold.
So we're required to talk about it.
We're required.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So as Renee said, literally the ink is still drying, but as of last Friday, there is some significant incentives that I would describe as a carrot masquerading as a stick. Is that the right way to say it?
Mm.
So should we find a dancing partner at the merger prom, then we expand to a district of 2,000 students.
Or more.
Or more. Then we would be eligible for 75% debt service aid on any new construction and 75% debt service aid on any existing construction.
This feels like.
Should we not do that, or should any district not do that, then this is where the stick is. So if you are between 750, which we are, and under 2,000, so 750 in 1999.
That's us.
You might be able to stay as is. You would not be eligible for the legacy debt incentive, and it's unclear whether you'd be eligible for 30% construction aid or not. I think that you are, per my skimming of it. If you are under the 750, which we won't be, then you get kind of put into they call it an eligible district, but it really means that that district is eligible for a merger determined by someone other than them. That's why I say it's kind of a carrot disguised as a stick. Or a stick
disguised as a
carrot. Are you saying it's like the big bad wolf in the red? In the red,
Red
Riding Hood?
Dressed up like
Okay.
grandma, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Grandma. So,
You know,
so there's a lot to it. I expect more to come out when it is signed.
Sure. Okay.
Brenda and Renee, if there are useful articles that you come across and it's possible to send them to us through Melinda, that would be great. Just because it is moving so quickly that I feel like I'm up to date on it, and then I turn around and there's something new.
Absolutely, that's how we felt.
Yep.
So literally last week, we were talking about the Senate amendment on 955, and by Friday night, it was the conference committee's compromise on the House 955, Senate Amendment 955, and the final bill. So, yeah, I think VSBA stuff isn't out yet. I think a lot of stuff is still not quite out.
The other big thing that is exciting from my point of view is that the foundation formula also kicks in 2930.
Yep, a year earlier.
So as a result, it would not be budgets going to town meetings anymore.
Right. Another reason why we might want to be proactive. So that's just food for thought. I think that's that community linkage piece and advocacy stuff that we skipped before. I did not invite the legislative reps to tonight's meeting. I think you guys are happy about that because otherwise we'd be here longer. But I will try to get them to a meeting soon. So at this point, we do have our facility bus tour on Saturday, June 20th. And we have our next OVU board meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd at 6 o'clock. But at this time, we do need to go into executive session for the purpose of labor relations. I would like Renee to stay and Brenda. I don't think anybody else needs to. Can I get someone to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
8:41? Okay, thank you, Leslie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Natalie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those against? Okay, thank you.